It's downtown to 95th Street. In downtown Chicago, the LaSalle Street Bridge closes again today for midday testing and maintenance. It's 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Metra is changing its weekend schedules. The Sunday schedule will now be in operation on Saturdays. That means no Southwest service trains at all on Saturdays. That's traffic. I'm Jim Talamonte on AM 560 The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next in our 1-hour heating and air conditioning weather center. Our meteorologist, Steve Williams.
A lakeshore flood advisory in effect this morning and then a freeze warning for tonight. It'll be breezy today, intervals of clouds and sun, high 45. Clear tonight with a low 30, and then mostly sunny tomorrow, the high 59. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560, The Answer.
39 at O'Hare, 37 Lakefront. Next news coming up at 6:30. Breaking news as it happens. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, and your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. President Trump, upon getting notice that charges against General Flynn had been dropped by the Department of Justice yesterday, had this to say.
He is a great gentleman. He was targeted by the Obama administration, and he was targeted in order to try and take down a president. And what they've done is a disgrace, and I hope a big price is going to be paid. A big price should be paid. There's never been anything like this in the history of our country. What they did, what the Obama administration did, is unprecedented. It's never happened. Never happened. A thing like this has never happened before in the history of our country. And I hope a lot of people are going to pay a big price because they're dishonest, crooked people. They're scum. And I say it a lot. They're scum. They're human scum. This should never have happened in this country. They got caught. They got caught. Very dishonest people. But much more than dishonest. It's treason. It's treason.
The T word has been called.
T word, yeah.
He also,
what do you think about that?
He also talked about the media as the complicit partner, the accomplice to the scum. The media and the scum working together. Or maybe they're one and the same.
Oh, the people should pay a big price for what they've done to this country. They should pay a big price. And their partner, very complicit, is a thing called the media. The media is totally guilty. And all of those writers and so-called journalists, they're not journalists, they're thieves. All of those journalists that received a Pulitzer Prize should be forced to give those Pulitzer Prizes back because they were all wrong.
All right, the scum and the thieves working together. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by Kevin Brock. He is a former assistant director of Intel for the FBI. He is also principal deputy director for the National Counterterrorism Center, and I should mention he spent 24 years as a special agent for the FBI in addition to being the former assistant director of intelligence. Kevin, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Hi, it's my pleasure, Dan. Amy, good morning. Obviously, Attorney General Barr was a little bit more measured on the topic and focused on the law, but the president gave a little bit more color and a characterization of the FBI. The senior leadership of the FBI. I think he was talking about the Mueller team as well, and then, of course, the media. How do you react to what the president said? He does have a way with words.
Indeed, he does. Yes.
Scum,
yes.
human scum.
Human
Yes.
scum.
Thieves
yeah,
and scum, yes. Yeah.
More than a little New York in there. Well, it is a proper decision, and there's two parts to this, and I kind of addressed that in the article I wrote this week, and that is, number one, the legal aspect, and Barr does a good job in his dismissal of pointing it out that this, and he uses the word untethered, it was untethered to any facts that allowed the FBI agents to be in that office interviewing General Flynn that day in the White House on January 24th, 2017. and that is a key. It's one of the first rules that an FBI agent learns when they become an agent in training in Quantico. Is you can't go out and interview somebody unless you have a legal basis to do so, and you can articulate reasonable suspicion that a crime has been committed. But not only did they not have a reason to interview him, they never had a sufficient reason to open up a counterintelligence case against him in the first place. And that's been pretty well established now. And so where the American people need to be aghast is that the FBI could be used in such a way. The second part of this is, and I think there's more investigation to be done by those that Attorney General Barr has asked to look into all of these matters, the whole Russia collusion matter and specifically the case against General Flynn, is whether or not the FBI was directed to or asked to interview Flynn because of, at the behest of the White House, because of a fundamental policy difference between the incoming administration and the outgoing administration, and that was the sanctions against Russia in reaction to election interference that President Obama placed on them, and then a secondary issue regarding settlements in Israel. So if you read Peter Strzok's 302, it really just addresses policy differences. It doesn't address any material criminal or counterintelligence reason. And so why did they do it? Was it at the behest of the White House, or was it because of their own personal animus and biases that made them decide to target General Flynn for a confrontational interview?
Well, but who sent those two FBI agents in to question Flynn after they knew that he had nothing to do with Russian collusion? Who gave them the order?
Well, we know one of them was Peter Strzok, the other was Joe Pientka, and we know that they were acting as part of the special team that Director Comey and former Deputy Director Andrew McCabe had set up to conduct the Russia collusion investigation out of the director's office at headquarters, which you and I have talked about in the past as highly irregular against all protocols inside the FBI. So there was a cabal of individuals from Comey on down that had decided they saw Russian agents acting on infiltrating the government from President Trump on down. It's bizarre. It's just, for those of us who haven't been in the FBI, the whole episode is just bizarre from the beginning. To answer your question, Amy, specifically, he was directed in there by Andy McCabe.
The top line is there was no basis for the entire counterintel investigation. There was no basis to interview Flynn. You write in your piece there that they did not have a legitimate justification to investigate an American citizen, which is exactly what Barr had said. In addition to that, you have the issue of the entire basis of the Mueller investigation, because we find there was no evidence of any Russian collusion either. That's restated again, including with the statements of former senior Obama administration officials.
That's correct.
So Mueller is folded into this too.
Yeah, because as we all know, that Mueller picked up the existing FBI counterintelligence investigation, codenamed Crossfire Hurricane. He subsumed that into the special counsel effort and was directed to in the memo written by Rod Rosenstein back in May of 2017 now. So, that was all part and parcel to the special counsel investigation, and we've written about, myself and others have written about this for 2 years, that Mueller had no legitimate counterintelligence predication on which to continue the investigation, since none existed in the first place, and that's been borne out.
And so Barr was asked about consequences by Catherine Herridge, and he said basically, look, we still have the Durham report. Just because something is unfair or looks was inappropriate, that's not the same thing as saying it's illegal. So he's obviously holding his powder until the Durham investigation is complete, which makes eminent sense. But forgetting the legal consequences, I know there's a great desire to see Comey and Brennan and others in jail, and let's let the Durham investigation play out. Talk about the consequences in terms of the status of the FBI as somebody who held a senior post there, was there for more than 2 decades. Consequences for the FBI, consequences for law enforcement, consequences for trust in federal government. Talk about those consequences.
I will. And let me make one very quick comment on what you just said about legal distinctions here. What Durham's going to likely find was a massive breach of policy, violations against the Attorney General guidelines, which don't necessarily carry a criminal penalty. Mm-hmm. Where I think you're going to see some of the legal peril jeopardy attach is when it comes down to examining the use of the FISA and any perjurous statements that were made by whomever and directed by whomever to get that warrant to eavesdrop on Carter Page. So, but to your larger question, impact on the FBI, the president is exactly right, and I was actually talking to John Solomon about this yesterday in a podcast, that this is, particularly if it can be determined that the FBI, for purely political reasons, took these actions, this is a monumental inflection point for the FBI. Similar to 9/11, where it was determined that the FBI and other government agencies were woefully unprepared and uncoordinated for a major terrorism attack. This is more of an internal attack. This is an internal disease or corruption that has to be confronted. We can never allow the FBI to be used in this manner from external forces or internally people with authority inside the FBI misusing the FBI for politically tainted reasons, biased reasons, or motivated reasons. We've never seen anything like even approaching this in the history of the FBI, and current FBI leadership is going to have to enact those reforms to make sure it never happens again.
Yeah, but how do you get your reputation back?
Yeah, exactly. And there's going to be a rehabilitation process that's required for the FBI, and right now, the FBI is sporting the black eye for all of this, for the information that was released last week and everything else.
And do FBI Director Christopher Wray's proposed reforms, do they go far enough to reestablish confidence in the FBI? They don't for me.
Well, not what we know publicly. We know that he has stated that he has enacted 40 separate reforms inside the FBI. We don't know what they all look like. We know one major one that he announced publicly, and that is never again will an investigation be run out of FBI headquarters, which should be back in the field where it belongs. Okay. But he said there's 40 other reforms. I would advise him to be as transparent as possible on those, to start reclaiming some of the American people's trust in the FBI. Again, I and others, we need to draw the distinction that this was a small subset of people at the leadership of the FBI. I analogize it to a COVID virus. It was an infection of the FBI. The FBI is on ventilator right now and needs to be rehabilitated to get back off and regain the trust of the American people.
He is Kevin Brock, former Assistant Director of Intelligence for the FBI, was an FBI Special Agent for 24 years, and Principal Deputy Director of the National Counterterrorism Center as well. Kevin, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
A business needs to be built on a great foundation, one with the framework of integrity and tradition. Chapel Design Build delivers just that, providing design build and general contracting services using Butler Steel Building Systems. Their projects dot the landscape from O'Hare to DeKalb. You see their work in office and warehouse additions, recreational facilities, large-scale distribution centers, and manufacturing plants all over northern Illinois. Partnering with Butler Steel Buildings, Chapel Design Build has developed an extensive subcontractor base and valuable market knowledge to get your quality-built project completed on time and on budget, ensuring your project is a success for your business and one that you will be proud of for years to come. The goal is to build lasting relationships with their clients using buildings that last from Butler. Get started on your next building project built with Butler Steel. Visit chapeldb.com. That's Chapel D as in design, B as in build.com.
I know in these anxious times, it's hard sometimes to get a good night's sleep, and maybe you should think about changing your linens, changing your sheets, changing your pillow. Hi, Amy Jacobson here, and I love my pillow products.